I am Ann Smith. I'm the head of school at Mildenhall Montessori School. I have a few quick announcements before we begin tonight. The first one is that we are recording our session this evening so that we can share it after with people who are not able to attend. So just important for you to know that. Feel free to, although we love to see your beautiful faces, feel free to keep your cameras off if that feels more comfortable to you. I am going to do a land acknowledgement before we start today. Mildenhall Montessori schools in their physical manifestation and address are in Abdobdikok, which means place of the elders in Ojibwe language, and to Toronto, which means where there are trees standing in, standing in the water in the Mohawk language. This land is uniquely situated along the Humber River watershed, which historically provided an integral connection for Aboriginal peoples between the Lakeshore of Ontario and the Lake Simcoe Georgian Bay region. This area falls within the traditional territory of the Wendat, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee peoples. With virtual connection and education, we are grateful to be hosting these meetings while physically being on those traditional territories. Possibly, given the technology that brings us together, some participants live and work on the traditional lands of additional First Nations peoples and have a responsibility to recognize that privilege. As a learning community that has the privilege to live and work on this land, we are required to be aware, knowledgeable, and active in the indigenization of our organization. Territory acknowledgements are one effort towards disrupting and dismantling colonial structures and act in very small part to undo Indigenous erasure. Education, and perhaps most particularly Montessori education, has social power and thus the responsibility to reflect, disrupt, and repair the ongoing effects of colonialism. Tonight, I'm super excited to introduce the middle school crew over at the Mildenhall School. This is a super love project of mine. Both of my younger children went through this program, so I'm super proud and very excited. So I'm just going to introduce the people who are speaking tonight and who made tonight possible. So in order, I believe, of speaking, Nick Raymond is here. He is the principal at the Mildenhall School and also is an adolescent trained Montessori guide. Stephanie Sconomilio, sorry, Steph, I'm trying. Stephanie Sconomilio is our middle school teacher. Jill Haig is our experiential education teacher. Catherine Shahovich, who is our admissions director and coordinator this year, and all things amazing, has done a lot of planning and preparation for this event tonight. So thank you, Catherine. And I always have to say thank you to Rebecca, who manages all of our tech for these evenings, and without whom none of us would ever remember how to use Zoom. So with that, we will hear from our educators tonight, and then we've got some special guests, alumni from the program, and we will have time, hopefully at the end, for some questions. If you want to throw questions into the chat, we will get to them if you're more comfortable that way. Otherwise, we'll try to have a sort of raise your hand and question and answer at the very end. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Nick Raymond.
Thanks, Anne. Hi, everybody. My name is Nick Raymond. For those of you who don't know me, I am principal at the Mildenhall School. Prior to my current role, I helped establish and was the lead teacher for the middle school program up until 2019. I do continue to maintain a presence in the middle school class as I still continue to teach math at this level. Our current middle school teacher, Stephanie, Ms. Sconomilio, will speak to the specifics of her curriculum. Well, I'm going to just spend a few minutes discussing the overall philosophy and methodology of a Montessori middle school program. Essentially, the program emphasizes the importance of interdisciplinary work, as well as a preparation for adult life. This is a framework through which students observe connections between themselves and the world they'll soon enter as adults. Encompassed within that preparation for adult life is a preparation for what comes next, i.e. high school. Therefore, our middle school program introduces concepts to help students with that, make that transition out of a Montessori into what is most likely going to be a traditional or maybe an alternative high school. So that includes more rigid subject-specific schedule, test taking and exam writing, introducing marks and homework to a degree that they most likely hadn't experienced in upper elementary. And like all Montessori classes, the middle school philosophy is based on the needs and tendencies of the child, or in this case, the adolescent. These include the need to engage in real meaningful work that contributes to their communities, close collaboration with peers and adults, and those adults beyond family and school adults, often getting students to ask or work with unfamiliar adults can be some of the most difficult sort of hurdles they're going to face in middle school. They also need to find opportunities for self-expression and creative outlets as new thoughts, interests, and emotions emerge. They have the need to self-construct their identities, that is, to begin to think about their lives as adults, as individuals, and not just as a part of a family, for example. And then finally, they have the absolute need for independence. The middle school curriculum itself, or the plan of work and study, as it's often called, incorporates several key goals. These include the development of the intellect, personal identity, and well-being. As I mentioned before, self-expression is a key goal. Understanding one's place within a larger community. This is often where experiential education comes into play, getting out into the community, understanding your place within, within a class, within a school, within a neighborhood, within a city, and then expands from there. Effective communication is key, as well as a preliminary understanding of economics, personal responsibility and accountability, and the value of both manual and mental work. So Montessori, we call it work of the head and work of the hand, and working on how to balance the two of them, because they are both incredibly important. So we've touched on the needs and the tendencies of the adolescent and how it informs our curriculum. So what is the role of the parents during this epic stage of development? We mentioned that the adolescent is on the brink of adulthood and needs greater responsibility and independence. Yet guidelines obviously continue to be important to them. There's a tendency at this age, as I'm sure some of us know, there's a tendency towards impulsivity as the brain continues to develop. This is alleviated by the Montessori principle of freedom within limits. So it encourages independence, but provides a solid foundation of understanding safety and what's appropriate and all those things. But we do want them to feel like they are asserting their independence at this age and stage. So parents are encouraged to support their child or their adolescent with opportunities to take on increased responsibilities at home, provided with a nutritious diet, adequate sleep, balanced extracurriculars, reading, a reasonable use of technology, which I know in my house is a constant struggle, and encouraging a healthy social life, in real life, ideally, independent of the parents' gaze. The work of the adult with the adolescent is to guide them through this plane of development towards becoming an active and positive contributor to adult society. So I know that was a lot, but that's generally the foundation with which we work. When I was a teacher, I would always come back to the idea of preparing them for adult life. It seems very broad, but when you kind of ground yourself with that philosophy, it helps you approach the adolescent in a way that you wouldn't necessarily approach a younger student. You don't treat them like children. You respect their, not that we don't respect the younger students, but we have to start looking at them as young adults, emerging adults, and to keep that in mind at all times. So on that note, thank you for listening, and I'll now hand it over to Stephanie to touch on specifics of the curriculum.
Great. Okay, hi everybody. I'm Stephanie Scorniamilio, or you can call me Miss S, like the students do, because that's a lot easier. And I am actually coming to you live from our beautiful, spacious, and festive middle school classroom. So hopefully you can see that. I've been teaching middle school, the middle school age group for 10 years now. And I've taught grade 6 all the way till grade 11 And I can assure you that middle school is the absolute best grade to teach. It's just this interesting and only slightly awkward in between stage where students are trying to figure out who they'll eventually become when they're older. So I have the privilege every day to guide them through this amazing journey of self-discovery. It's really a lucky job that I have. All right, I will go through what our program is about, and I'll try not to repeat too much of what Nick already went through. So what we do here at Mildenhall for middle school is we create a mix of blending together Montessori and the Ontario curriculum. Because as we already said, our main goal is to make sure that students are successful when they move on to high school and for whatever next steps they move to afterwards, be it the workforce, a trade, or university. To help them on this path, we emphasize a few things. Some of them have already been mentioned, but I'll just mention them again a little bit more specifically for what I do as homeroom teacher. So very important, these students need to practice meeting deadlines. So they'll often have due dates and they'll have homework and they'll have to make sure that they get things in on time. And I will check everything so they can't get away with not doing any of their work. We also use technology a lot in the classroom so that they can get used to using different presentation programs and also just learning how to do things effectively on the computer so they don't get distracted and also safely. As was already mentioned, students need to get used to different forms of assessment. So this means tests, quizzes, rubrics for essays, and getting used to timed writing and exam conditions. So this doesn't come as a surprise once they get to high school or university. We also emphasize thinking critically, so always asking questions of everything around you so that you can form your own judgments and your own opinions. Especially for adolescents, forming positive relationships with adults and with their peers is extremely important. So we work on those friendships and working together. We have a very collaborative space. Hopefully you can see that. It's kind of a boardroom setup because I think it's really important that they are constantly working together. Also, being a leader is extremely important, setting that example for the younger kids and also taking action. And lastly, but definitely not the least, is giving back to the community. So figuring out their place in the world around them and then giving back to those that are around them. All right, so let's get into some more details about the curriculum. So the subjects that we learn about and that we explore. I'll start with math. And Mr. Raymond is our math expert. So I'm going to pass very briefly back to him so he can tell us just a little bit more about math.
Sure, thank you, Steph. Okay, so I'm sure you've heard someone, usually an adult, joke and laugh about not being able to do math. But I always think of that as like, would they joke the same way about not being able to read? Probably not. It's not really. It becomes sort of it changes from a joke into kind of a tragedy if we're referring to literacy as opposed to numeracy or understanding math. But it's an absolute expectation that we are literate. However, when it comes to math, it's as if there's some understanding and acceptance that many of us simply can't do it. I don't accept that, and I don't believe that. I believe an understanding of math is just as attainable as an understanding of language. We all possess a mathematical mind. We just need to find the right way to tap into it. And that's how I inform my program. And our math program allows for that potential to develop, even in students who come into middle school not necessarily confident with their math skills. I know there's potential there, and they just need to find it. Once that confidence develops, it allows us to push further than a traditional middle school math curriculum tends to. In fact, generally our graduates are working at about a grade level above the curriculum once they move into grade 9. They're generally working at a grade 10 level for the most part. Within the curriculum itself, we provide units that are grade level specific in the sense that the grade 7s for this term have been working on algebra and linear equations, while level 8 is completely a unit on factoring polynomials and the distributive property. But we also provide opportunities for both grade levels to work on units together. For example, next term, both grades are going to be working on a probability unit. And then we branch back off, but there are opportunities for them to be working together, but also working apart. Other units include geometry, data management, systems of equations, rates, proportional relationships. And as we mentioned before, we also introduce unit quizzes and end of term exams at the middle school level. We also have what's called a math seminar, which is where students are presented a few problems, which are generally above their level, but they take some time to work through it, attempt a solution. The point of the exercise is not to reach the correct answer, but just to reflect on how they're feeling about the problem. What's frustrating them? Where did they get stuck? And sharing those frustrations with each other, and just providing a space that is where they feel free to take chances and make mistakes. And that's really the key part of the seminar. It's not about reaching consensus. It's just about sharing and learning from each other. So that's essentially the math program in a nutshell. Stephanie, you can take over from there.
Thank you very much. And next, I'll talk to you about science. So when it comes to our study of science, it's all about the spirit of discovery. We usually begin the lesson with an experiment. So I try to include an experiment in almost each lesson. And we follow the different steps of the scientific method in order to discover what's going on at the microscopic level. Some of the units that we study are heat, climate change, mixtures, and cells. And those are based off of the Ontario curriculum to make sure that they have the foundational knowledge that they need for high school. They actually just finished not too long ago a mixtures project where they created their own funky mixtures, putting all sorts of ingredients together, and then they use different separation techniques to actually bring those mixtures back to their original ingredients or material. For language, we read all sorts of different texts that have historical connections because it creates that extra layer of engagement, that extra layer of meaning. We finished a unit on Animal Farm this year, and it was really, really powerful. There were so many connections to the real world that they can make, to the Russian Revolution, and just to like things that go on every day, seeing people that are trying to gain power by stepping on those below. Last year, we read The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. So again, a little bit more nonfiction with real life connections. When we read, we focus on analyzing language, analyzing structure, and also discussing themes. So those messages behind the work and why the author is creating this piece of work. When it comes to writing, we incorporate different audiences, different purposes, so that students can develop their own unique writing style. And I tend to favor writing tasks that have real life purposes. So next term, we'll be making a school newspaper. And at the end of the year, students will be writing and performing their own slam poem. And last year, we created an anthology of Gothic stories where we put together all of the scary stories we wrote all together in a little booklet that is actually in our library for anyone who wants to read it. Next, we have humanities. This is where we adopt a thematic approach to history and geography. When it comes to history, we journey through time, studying themes such as rebellions, health and healing, and discovering our own community of Etobicoke. For health and healing, we are currently working on that now, and students are researching their own inquiry questions, and then they'll start writing an essay style response, coming up with their own opinion to their question. For geography, we explore place by looking at natural resources, economies, and inequalities that are taking place across the globe. On top of all of these homeroom subjects, we also have our specialists. So we have experiential education that we'll get to in a little bit more detail in just a little bit. We have art, we have music, we have French, and we have physical education as well. On top of our 7 and 8 curriculum, we also have several aspects that set us apart from other schools. One of the main things is that we have a small class size, so we can offer a lot of personalized attention. That means lots of feedback, lots of one-on-one. They get a lot of time with me. There was once a student who even said to me, "Oh, you gave me 91 comments on one of my tasks or one of my writing assignments." And I was like, yeah, that's a lot. You get a lot of me. And this also means that we can cater to individual needs and that we can cater to individual interests as well. As you can see in this lovely second photo, that is us on our 8-day canoeing trip, which we take at the start of every year. And I can really tell you that it is a once in a lifetime experience where the students accomplish things they either never thought was possible or they might not get the chance to ever do again. So it really is an amazing experience. And we'll hear more about that in a little bit. Every day, students have recommendation presentations. So they pick a text, either a poem, an advertisement, a video game, or a movie, and they present their opinion on this text and some criticism as well. So what are the limitations, whose perspectives are missing? And this is fantastic practice for speaking in front of other people, but also creating different digital presentations. So my goal this year is to try and get them to use something else besides Google Slides so that they can experience using different programs. Every year we have a science fair. So students pick a topic that's of interest to them and they design their own experiment. Then they conduct the experiment, write about their results, and they create a really detailed lab report. Once all this is done, they set it on display, like you can see here in one of these giant Bristol boards, and they present to other students, to staff members, and to parents. And it's super fun. They bring in their experiments and you can actually see what they've done. In our classroom, we work really hard to build a culture for pleasure. It's really important at this adolescent age that we keep up that joy of reading. And we do this by taking a lot of trips to the library. And every middle schooler makes a library card. And I will encourage them almost every day to pick out some books and to keep reading. We actually have a read every day challenge where I ask them to read for at least 15 minutes a day. And once they finish a book, we put up a little sticker next to their name on the wall and we look at how many books they've read throughout the year. We also have book club every Friday where students each talk about the book that they're reading and they ask an open-ended question so that we can all connect our novels to common subjects. And lastly, we offer many leadership opportunities. This year, we have a teaching assistant sort of program that I've set up where the middle schoolers will help out in the other classrooms and they'll assist with games during gym, math, and also reading. Our middle schoolers also organize whole school events. They put on a Halloween party for all of the different classes where they planned and organized and led games in the gym. And they'll be doing the same for the holiday party that's coming up at the end of this term. Last year, we had a student council. This year, we have an art club where middle schoolers lead activities related to art for the younger students at lunchtime. And in the picture here, this is from a project that we did last year where the middle schoolers guided the lower elementary students in a letter writing project. So they prepared all the materials to teach these students to write a letter, to edit the letter, to make a final copy. And then we sent them off to Greta Thunberg. We actually found her foundation and sent all of the letters to her. It was great fun. One of the most unique aspects of our middle school program is experiential education. I'll hand over to Jill, who will provide us with some more details about all the extraordinary things that they get up to.
Thank you so much, Miss S. Really appreciate that. So this experiential outdoor education program came into existence 3 years ago as we all emerged from a very solitary and indoor screen dominant COVID world. And the Mildenhall vision and Smith's vision was that we brought our children to the exact polar opposite of that spectrum. So one of full day, one of collaboration, immersed in community, completely screen free, and really adventuring in the exact place that we live. So I'm going to speak to 4 very specific events that have happened actually just this term from September to today, in hopes that that'll offer you a really good insight into the overall program. So Stephanie talked about, we start every year in Temagami on this amazing Odyssey trip. Steph calls it once in a lifetime. It's been 3 times in my lifetime now, twice for the grade 7s and 8s who get to come at the beginning of each year. And it cements these children firmly in the core values of independence, of persistence, teamwork, and then of course a whole heap of laughter, because you wouldn't make it through if you didn't. The students return absolutely changed human beings with a full belief that they can do absolutely anything, and this incredible knowledge that their teammates truly have their backs no matter what. And I believe this trip in middle school is unique to Mildenhall. The second thing I'll be speaking about is community service, again, which Steph definitely touched on. You can see our students there at the Daily Bread Food Bank. Our focus on community service falls under the social studies in the ministry curriculum, if you're looking at Ontario ministry, as our students discuss and directly engage in the topic of global inequality, economic development, and quality of life. This year, we centered our work in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as we really serendipitously started middle school back here at home, not in Temagami, on September 21st, which was the International Day of Peace. The students decided to focus on one goal each in those sustainable developmental goals that the United Nations had set out. And so far this term, they've engaged the entire Mildenhall community in both a food drive they call Trick or Eat. And that picture there you can see on the screen is one of them not only dropping off the food, 292 pounds of food, which they carefully carried down to our Daily Bread Food Bank, but they also were allowed to go in for a tour, which is very atypical for students of our age. And because of our students' behavior when they got there, it looks like they're going to be able to be allowed to go back and volunteer in the winter term, which we're really excited about. The second goal that the students, that goal was no hunger. And then the second goal was around responsible consumption and production. So right now they are engaging the community in holiday free cycle, which basically is an event where all of our community members can bring in a gift. And then on the last day of school, they can pick up a gift. So it's just this exchange of goods and services so that our consumption is lowered and things don't end up in landfill. The picture of the tinfoil there in the center. So the middle school sort of science curriculum, experiential education, science curriculum, botany, zoology, geography, history, all firmly rooted in this curriculum. And this year the students worked hands-on to build a solar pizza oven in which they actually cooked their own lunch, which was super cool. And we got them thinking about alternate energy sources and understanding of energy transfer, practical applications, obviously, of science and tech, as well, of course, as it being delicious. And then pedagogy of place, which is, hands down what we're looking at. It's just an attitude and an intention to place-based and land-based education. The middle school students do map work every day. When we're together, every session, they understand all transit systems in the city, TTC, subway, bus, streetcar, GO train, their walking routes in their city. One of our grade 8 student told the time to me last Thursday, simply because of where he knew the sun was, because they're all aware I'm not going to tell them the time during the day, even though they ask me. And he told it by putting his back to the south and telling me the time from his shadow from the sun. We engaged this year and every year in a very focused bicycling course through Cycle TO, which teaches our students yet another method of travel in our city. Our coaches from that program offer instruction in bicycle maintenance and repair, safe riding, hand signals, all the types of bike routes in our city. And our middle school students are then comfortable and confident city cyclists. So those are, just in the last 3 months, a few of the things that we've been doing in experiential education. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thanks, Steph.
Thank you, Jill. I love hearing about everything that they get up to, and every time I hear it and I see it, I'm just amazed by their happy and also tired faces when they get back, because they've worked so incredibly hard. So thank you for that. And there's just a couple more things I wanted to show you all. So this is, and I hope it shows, it's cut off on my screen, but anyways. So this is our current timetable that we have in middle school right now. And I just want to show you how we have a little bit more of a structured organization to our days. So everything is sort of organized by subject, so that it resembles more of a high school type of timetable. We want to make sure that this is a transitional period for the students and they get used to what life will be like during the day when they get to high school. And now that you've heard all of this from myself and Nick and Jill, it's time to hear from these lovely people who have experienced the program for themselves. So we'll turn to our graduates. First, I'll ask Christian to speak. Christian graduated in 2019. I'm just checking if Christian is here.
Yep. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi, Christian. Yes, we can hear you. Could you just tell us a little bit about what you experienced when you were here at Mildenhall?
Yes, of course. So yeah, I am indeed an alumni from the middle school program at Mildenhall. So yeah, I'm an alumni, but I was at Mildenhall for like many years. So I started when I was just a couple years old, all the way up until I graduated from middle school. So I definitely can speak to the experience of the whole entire school, and especially the Montessori program. So yeah, I just want to say I felt very prepared for high school, especially when talking about the middle school program specifically. So yeah, in terms of academics, just every single subject, I was very nervous about high school personally, but being very adept with my academics definitely helped me. I was nervous in terms of social setting and stuff, but the being adept in my academics really helped me. Just want to say, when I started grade 9, the review and everything, it was basically child's play to me, just because everything that we learned in grade 8 was just a year ahead. Right? That's what we were talking about. So yeah, everything's basically a year ahead. So I was very, very prepared, I'd say. And yeah, but also not just in academics, but also in lifelong skills. So skills such as critical thinking, things like that. I think that was a really important skills that many people don't really have today. So in terms of the critical thinking, just thinking outside the box, and that's a core ideal of Montessori, right? So I feel like the middle school program really embodied that and really helped me in my journey throughout high school. So yeah, I did go through high school. I'm a first-year university student now at York University, so I'm studying English. And yeah, so I'll never forget my experience at Mildenhall, and especially the middle school program. Like I said, the Odyssey trips where we went to Temagami, they were very nice. And, it's like, I feel like I couldn't really experience that anywhere else. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Christian. Can I just ask where you're studying right now? I know you said you're studying English, but where?
York University, that's where I'm at
Oh,
right now.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
really amazing. Thank you. And just because I'm interested, is there something specific that you remember from your trip to Temagami?
From Temagami, okay, I remember most importantly, I really remember trying to carry the canoe. They tried to maybe carry one of the canoes. That was a really hard experience for me. So like I really didn't want to do it at all. And they really pushed me to. And I'm glad they did, like all by myself, basically. Even like, listen, I wasn't very strong, but they still pushed me to do it. And listen, can't even say I carried it that far, but like the fact they just pushed me to do it, I feel like was very important for me. And after that, like I'm not even like an outdoors person, I'm an indoors person. That's what I'd say. But after that trip, I almost felt like I wanted to go back even right then, just because I felt so accomplished with what I did. The canoe, like everything else we did there, making our own food. It was definitely a great experience for me. So that's also why, yeah, the Odyssey trip I think is very important. Yeah, that's the greatest memory I had, really carrying the canoe.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christian, for joining us this evening and taking the time to come speak to us about your experiences. We really appreciate that. And next we have Adrian, who graduated not too long ago in June of this year. Is Adrian here with us?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Great. Hi, Adrian. Oh, nice to see you. I haven't seen you since you graduated.
Nice to see you too.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. You?
I'm very well, thank you. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience at Mildenhall for middle school?
Yeah, sure. So I've actually prepared something here, but first, my name's Adrian Terlizzi. I go to Hudson College. And yeah. So I speak before you today as a 14-year-old filled with gratitude and nostalgia to share my journey through Mildenhall School and my middle school experience, and in particular, how it prepared me for my high school journey. Reflecting on my time in middle school, the first word that comes to mind is community. Our school, and yes, Mildenhall will always be our school, isn't just a place of learning. It's a tightly knit community where students, teachers, and parents work together to create a supportive environment. This sense of community has been instrumental in shaping who I am today. And I assure you, these are not empty words. Math with Nick was both challenging, which I liked because the method of learning was to give us the independence to challenge myself. We were provided with just enough support to help me along the way. The algebra was very helpful and has put me ahead of the class. Personally, I struggled with French, but Daniela, our French teacher, was always so hopeful, and that made a difference. Having understanding teachers is super important. Art was a good escape from school, and Slavko's gym classes allowed me to release my energy, and he is very creative with the resources that Mildenhall has. One big surprise was Jill's outdoor ed. I was so apprehensive at first, but boy, was I wrong. I have some amazing experiences, and now that I have to take transit to get to school, it's really helped me. Jill has taught me so much about public transit and TDC, so thank you very much, Jill. Being outside learning about the public transit system and how to navigate the city helped me so much. I want to commend Mildenhall for taking this approach, as I'm a better person overall for it. One of the most striking aspects of Mildenhall Middle School was its unique educational approach, which encouraged my academic growth and instilled in me a profound sense of responsibility and empathy. It emphasizing helping those younger than you. This experience has been transformative. It taught me the value of patience, compassion, and leadership. In fact, at my current school, I'm in the Model United Nations representing the country of Italy, and I'm a part of the newspaper as an editor and have an average in the high 90s in science. The academics in middle school, I feel, have set me up for this. Thank you. But I ask you, what a world is where only academics are underscored? Not a good place. Montessori is greater than the sum of its parts. The self-directed work in particular, I liked. I actually loved it. I felt independent, and the hands-on approach just felt right to me. Honestly, it motivated me. I was able to do work at my own pace. I'm doing well in high school now and no mistake. The middle school program was my foundation. Oh, and the threat of my parents taking away my Xbox is amazing performance. It boosts me. All kidding aside, one core strength is the person Mildenhall and all Mildenhall program made into me. Sorry. And one thing people say is that, like, my friends from high school, they said Adrian used to go to a Montessori school, and like, how was the switch? Because like they were, you know, in standard form this entire time. They're like, "Oh, it must be hard, right?" And I was like, actually, no, it was perfectly fine. My teachers taught me leadership, independence, how to study, working hard, confidence. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian, especially for taking the time. I hear you're extremely busy with school, so I really appreciate that. And I really just remembered how much we all love your amazing speeches. Honestly, you've said it all so well. It was really just lovely to see how much you're just excelling and have grown into such an amazing young man. So thank you so much for taking that time. Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, what's the favorite, one best memory you have from being in middle school? One, just one.
I don't know, that's hard. The entirety of it.
I know. Something that sticks out.
Hard to say that there was no favorite memory. I'd say that the entire experience itself was one massive great memory. Yeah.
Okay, I'll accept that for now.
All right.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Anytime.
Come visit us soon, okay? So we can
I
hear
will,
more about
yeah.
how you're doing. All right, take care. Thank you again to both of our graduates. I'm so glad that they can be here with us tonight, and I hope that you enjoyed hearing from them. And I've learned a lot about our program from them. So now that you've heard all about middle school at Mildenhall, I thought we can open up the meeting to any questions. So if anybody would like to ask something, please go ahead, and I will try to answer as best as I can.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, I can hear you.
We can hear you, Bobby.
Hi, how are you, everyone? That was a really fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. I do have a question I'd like to ask, and anyone can answer it, or maybe specifically to Anne. I know there was rumblings in the past regarding of a feeder school or making or kind of joining Mildenhall with high schools or particular high schools to help direct and continue this type of learning in other schools. And more to that, and is there any line of sight for that we can potentially look to?
Hi, Bobby. Thanks. Yeah. You're speaking my language, man. You know, I have a lot of thoughts about how we might be able to do that and what, you know, what that could look like in the future. And certainly a good friend of mine has been experimenting with a couple of different ways of doing that in Hamilton. So I right now, we don't specifically have plans. I'm really invested in getting this middle school, you know, thriving and filled. And while I understand that if we could keep going, that would also be a draw, right? The fewer transitions often are really appealing to people. And certainly, you know, obviously I have a strong preference for this mode, mode or type of education. You know, more conventional high school is not, you know, that's not my favorite thing to talk about, but I think our kids, what we've seen is our students are doing super well in a variety of settings. So, you know, Adrian over there at Hudson College, that's a smaller private school setting. We've got a number of kids who in recent years have gone to Etobicoke School of the Arts. That's really popular. Again, you know, maybe slightly less conventional, both of those choices. And then we've had kids go to the really big high schools also and been successful there. So I don't personally have a lot of plans right now. I'm trying to figure out. I've been instructed a little bit by those people, wonderful people who are also on this call, to stay focused. And let's get 7 and 8 really going. But I'd love to talk further about that sometime, Bobby, with you.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Of course.
If anybody else has a question, you can just unmute your microphone and go ahead and ask.
I'll wait if there's anyone else, but I do have another one.
I don't think I hear anybody or see anything popping up. So you can go ahead, I think.
So I only had 2 questions. That was one, and the other one was around, a lot of the current events that's going on out there, and how, Stephanie, how do you address those topics? Like, when you hear the grade 7s and 8s, I'm sure you guys, all the teachers, kind of hear some of that chatter in the background. Is it as concerning as it is out there in the real world? Like, is that something that you need to incorporate or talk about in class? Have you come across that?
So we've actually spoken about current events quite a lot recently. I don't really set aside time for it specifically. I just go with how it comes up whenever students bring it up. Sometimes I can sense that there's something going on that they want to talk about. So I'll just ask, like, how are you guys feeling? Do you want to talk about anything? I know there's a lot going on right now, and that will open up the dialogue and they can start discussing how they feel. So I try to approach it from, like, how are you feeling about everything? Because sometimes they don't really understand everything that's happening or understand their own feelings. So if we can just talk about it and share how we all feel, we can start to feel a little bit better about everything that's going on. And I always approach it from, like, an angle of, I don't have all the answers. I have an opinion. I have my own opinion that I can share if they want to hear. And I tell them how I feel and what I do when I am feeling sad, or what I do when I'm feeling scared, or what I do when I feel like I don't understand things, or like things are too much. And we're a small group, so we have that safe space where we can have these conversations, and we don't always get to an answer, but having that conversation often makes them feel better. And then we'll do, like, hey, this was a heavy topic. Let's watch a funny video, or let's tell a joke, so that we can bring the mood a little bit back up. But I do like to open up that dialogue all of the time with them, because I know that there is a lot going on. So it's about navigating that conversation as much as I can, but leaving the space open so they can share their thoughts and their opinions. And I always try to come, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Steph, right? Like, and Bobby knows as a parent, and we know as teachers, that these things come up in the most, random ways. In Temagami, in the middle of a beach somewhere this year, I was drawing reproductive systems in the sand and explaining how, boys are on the outside and girls are on the inside, simply because that happened to come up in that moment somehow with the group. And I wasn't even really engaged in that. So, I wasn't walking up to the kids, hey, you want to know how reproductive systems work? It was just that moment where that happened, and those kids really needed to know that information. And part of the art of this is knowing how much to say, not answering questions you're not asked.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see each other do that as educators and as parents, it's quite amazing how the kids really are looking for exactly the amount of information they want and need in those particular moments. So just navigating that, and the world's hard right now. And it's interesting listening to them try to work through that and helping them through that.
Yeah, exactly. And lunchtime will often bring up those conversations when we sit and have lunch together, and they'll ask the strangest questions. And I've gotten very skilled at giving information, but not too much information.
Not too much.
Yeah, exactly, like you said.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
that really helps. Jill and Stephanie, thank you for your input.
Thank you. I see Jenny has your hand up. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question? Hello.
Hi
Hi.
there. Hi. I just wondered if maybe I wondered if you maybe could speak to the technology piece just a little bit, if you don't mind. I know that for the lower elementary and the upper elementary, they don't use technology. They don't seem to use technology quite as much. And I'm just wondering, because I know you said in your description that there was more of a focus with technology. So I'm wondering if maybe you could just speak to that piece and how you help coach them through, the safety aspect and all of those things of using the technology in the classroom.
Absolutely. So we start with using Google. So I'll get them all to make Google slideshows very often for all of their recommendation presentations. They need to make slideshows. And I tend to lead by example with whatever I do and whatever I'm teaching. So I'll always start and I'll show them how I make my slideshows step by step. And then if they have questions about how I've done anything, I will show them how to do it. I will actually guide them through. You click here, you add this, you do that. And then as they're working on their own projects in school, I like to always start the year with a project that uses technology. I will go around and I will guide them through each one. And it's really amazing. They'll come in at the start of the year and they'll be like, where do you click? How do you do this? How do you open? And then by like this time of year, they're showing me how to do things. So it's really incredible. They pick it up really fast. When it comes to safety, it tends to be more conversations that we have, especially around social media and keeping safe around social media. And just like being careful when you're looking at certain things in your research. So making sure you look at the link before you click on it, making sure you don't engage in conversations with people you don't know and things like that. Because they often want to talk about their social media use and their video gaming and things like that. So I'm just like, make sure you're being careful. You're not playing things that are too old for you, or you're not talking to anyone that you don't know, and you're not clicking on anything that you don't recognize. So I hope
Do
that
they all
answers.
come in? Do they all come in with laptops? Like do they bring Chromebooks to the program? Is that how it works?
Yes, so it's like a bring your own device. So they can bring in whatever they need to get their work done, their research done. So often they'll have a Chromebook that they bring, and that's their computer that they use for school. We have a few spares in case anybody needs, like a backup.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. It's a great question.
I'm just going to jump in really quick just to plug our parent event in January, which is about digital citizenship and safety. So we have planned a Zoom thing for parents about computer use and social media and stuff. So I just thought I'd jump in and interrupt everything just to plug that.
Thank you. Anybody else want to ask anything? Oh, I see a hand. Where's it coming from? Go ahead. Hi.
Hi, it's Nishma. Could you speak a little bit more to how you facilitate testing with the kids, since they've not really ever done anything like that before?
Yeah, it's a really big issue. And the minute that you say the word test, their faces are just like, "Ugh," and they get really scared. So I like to throw it in every once in a while. So I'll often do pop quizzes. So when it comes to our language units, sometimes I'll have them read a chapter for homework. And then when it's due, I'll begin the lesson with a pop quiz. And they'll have to answer questions about what they read. It's very low stakes, so they can just get used to that like discomfort. Sometimes I'll end the lesson with a quiz based on what we just learned. In math, they'll have actual tests where they have to go and they have to study and they have to prepare. We also do a Q&A competition for science where we compete against other schools in Canada, and we have to study a handbook and then answer questions. So it's very low stakes sort of study skill practice. What else do we do for testing? I think at the end of this year, we'll do an actual science test so that they can get used to that. Just because I sense a lot of like, oh, exam, oh, I don't like it. So that means I have to do more of it. And I like to do timed writing as well. So they do a reading journal every week. And I go, you have 10 minutes to do as much writing as you can. And they kind of go, oh, 10 minutes. And I'll go 5 minutes, 4 minutes, just to sort of get them used to it. But then I'll often give them a little bit longer just so that they can get that sense.
Stephanie, I'm just going to jump in with math
Yeah, of course.
specifically as well. So essentially, at least when they enter in grade 7, it's very kind of, as Stephanie mentioned, low stakes, but also the emphasis is on organizing your work so that you can study. The review packages, like the review I give them prior to the quiz, in terms of format, is identical to what the quiz is going to be. It's just that the numbers or whatever are going to be different. So they do become more. It's about building up the confidence, managing any kind of anxieties, and then dealing with the quizzes themselves. But focus is on preparation, learning how to take a test. You teaching them strategies like, if you're stuck on a 1 point or 1 mark question, leave it alone, go to the 4 mark question next to it, come back around, those sort of things that you kind of, that you learn in traditional school, or you kind of pick up on as you go through traditional school. And ultimately, by the end of the year, it's interesting. I wouldn't say they're fixated, but they're so eager to know their scores, right? Like it's such a novelty for them at that point. And I do assure them, I'm like, these tests are important for when you move into high school, so you're used to them. In terms of the grades themselves, that does not inform my opinion or my assessment of your abilities. It is a snapshot of how you were doing that day. Beyond that, the point of the test is so that you are feeling confident when you do move on to those exams, those 3-hour exams in grade 9 that you'll have to write.
That's great.
I like
Thank
to.
you.
I also like to show them like how they can study. So when we prepare for the science Q&A, I get them to do different forms of like reviews. So make a mind map, make flashcards, make post-it posters with the questions and the answers on the back. So different ways so they can figure out what works best for them. So they establish those study habits so they're ready for high school. That makes sense and answers. We have another hand up. You can go ahead. Hello. Little unmute button if that's what you're looking for.
Hi, Alana. I don't know where the video is, but anyway, just to add to the technology, just as a teacher, but also a parent, Stephanie's really good at having all the work itemized and listed in Google Classroom. So I was also worried, what is this transition going to be like from upper to middle, with my child having never even really, has played video games, but hasn't really ever worked on a laptop. Like what's that all going to look like? But Stephanie really made that transition really easy. And it's really nice that they can see what they have to work towards. What are the goals? What are the deadlines? Because ultimately, this is what's going to be happening in high school. So that was great, as well as these sort of weekly email updates that she will give the parents, letting them know exactly what their child did, which is really nice because as a parent, you don't always know what is going on. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that.
Thank you. I wasn't sure anybody really enjoyed my weekly emails. I just write really long ones and
I really do. I really do.
Good to know. I'll keep those coming. Anybody else? I know we're a little bit over time, but if anybody else wants to ask a question, I see a hand, but I don't. Okay, it's gone.
I have one question. I know you mentioned the small class size, but what is the class size exactly, and what is the ratio?
So we have 5 students with us this year. We had 10 last year. And I don't know about the years before. I think it was around 7 or 6. So, yeah.
Yeah, we've had 14 one year, we had 11 one year. So I guess it fluctuates between 5 and 15 to this point.
On that note, if there was less than 5, let's say even 1, what would happen to that class?
Does
That's a
anybody?
great question, Bobby. I'll hop in again, Stephanie. So, okay. I have to sort of share my preference first because there's a lot of concern at this age around they won't have a large enough peer group. So, I have to share my bias, which is at this age, smaller in-class peer group is actually really beneficial for them because they learn depth of relationship and they're supported in, really getting through depth of relationship. So I acknowledge that that's my bias. I also acknowledge that I'm always trying to grow the program because that's what makes it sustainable. And a program for 1 to 3 to 4 students isn't actually sustainable for them as well. So anything less than 5 makes it really, really difficult for them from a peer relationship perspective. Like we do start to try to think of novel ways to connect them with others in their age group doing academic work. I can get into that on a different call, but I think one of the things that I'm super excited about tonight is we've got people from Tattle Creek as well as from Mildenhall. So we're really getting the program into the airwaves and seeing the strengths or the possibility and the opportunity for some cross-site engagement and some cross-site populating of the program, I guess. One of the interesting things about this is we would take, and we do actually into our elementary programs as well, but we would take children who have not grown up in our schools. They have to go through a little bit of a different admission process to make sure it's the right match because it is a really unique program. So, there's a long answer and a short answer, Bobby, but, anything less than, certainly anything less than 4 students, we would be talking way ahead of time about how, what that would look like in reality, how we can make that work. It's a really difficult thing to get a new program like this started in a school, despite being around for a long time. So, ebbs and flows right now.
Thanks. And are you talking,
Yeah.
Is it specifically for grade 8s or 7s and 8s?
7s and 8s. So, although we think of the class as a total class size.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Anybody else?
Okay, I'm gonna jump in and call it, I think, Stephanie.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you so much, everybody. It was really a great presentation, and I'm super proud of this program. I can't tell you, as a psychologist, as a mom, the benefit to a program like this for our middle school kids, so that they're not, here's my bias again, but so that they're not held sort of in a holding pattern for 2 years of really important adolescent development. Those 7, 8 years it's a period of consolidation academically. And so it can, unfortunately, then be kind of a holding time, which is, it's hard on them. They can get bored and they need some real work and some real people treating them as if they are also the real people that they are.
Why are you doing that?
So I am proud, that we have this, and I'm thrilled that my kids got to benefit from it. And I'm so excited to see Kristen and Adrian. It's really cool to see these kids who've grown up with us and are doing so well. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We're always open to conversation and, reach out anytime. I'll do another plug for our Zoom parent events. They happen, you know, really frequently now, like once a month. And the next one is in January, and it's on digital citizenship and safety for our kids on the internet. So thank you again. Thank you to our presenters, and we will see you next time.